The Unopened Letter. In the quiet town of Halewick, nestled between rolling hills and willow trees, there lived a postman named Arthur Bell. He wasn't known for anything remarkable. He was neither especially tall, nor witty, nor wealthy. But Arthur was reliable. Every morning, for 35 years, he strapped on his leather satchel, put on his faded blue cap, and walked his delivery route through the winding streets of Halewick, come snow, sun, or rain. Arthur loved the rhythm of his job. He knew every doorstep, every barking dog, every garden, full of roses or marigolds. He watched children grow up, saw lovers become parents, and walked, beside old folks, into their final winters. He greeted each villager with a tip of the hat or a quiet smile. The town trusted Arthur with their secrets, love letters, overdue bills, handwritten apologies, and once even a ring box with a trembling proposal inside. He didn't gossip. He didn't snoop. He was the guardian of stories that weren't his, the silent witness to life's joys and heartbreaks. And in return, the people of Halewick respected him, though perhaps they never truly knew him. But there was one letter Arthur never delivered. It was marked simply, "To be delivered upon my death." Arthur had received it decades ago from a young woman named Eleanor Whitmore. She was in her early 20s then, with chestnut curls and a sad smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Eleanor lived alone in a small stone cottage on Elderberry Lane, spending most of her days in the garden or sketching by the river. Eleanor was a gentle presence in Halewick. She volunteered at the local library, helped the school children with their reading, and spent quiet afternoons painting birds and trees. People often said she was too soft for the world, too delicate to live alone. But Eleanor seemed content with her solitude. The day she handed Arthur the letter, the sky was overcast, and the wind bit at their faces. She met him by her garden gate, gloved hands wrapped tightly around a thick cream envelope. "Please keep this safe," she said softly. "When I'm gone, make sure it reaches Thomas Gray." Arthur looked at her with concern. "Of course. But why not give it to him yourself?" She hesitated. Her eyes flicked toward the trees, as if searching for courage. "Because timing is everything." Arthur had nodded, unsure what she meant, but respectful of her request. He tucked the envelope into the inner flap of his satchel that day, and later placed it inside a small wooden box at home, a box where he kept the rare letters that needed special care. Eleanor died young, just 3 years later. It was sudden, an illness that no doctor caught in time. She had collapsed one spring morning in her garden, her unfinished painting still clipped to the easel. The whole town mourned her, especially Thomas Gray, who had loved her deeply, but had been away studying medicine in another city. He returned for her funeral, pale and hollow-eyed. The service was held in the chapel by the lake. People brought wildflowers and whispered stories of her kindness. Thomas stood silently at the back, his hands shaking as he placed a single rose on her casket. He stayed in Halewick for a few months after, helping Eleanor's neighbors, sorting her belongings, wandering through the fields where they had once walked. But then, quietly, he left. No farewell party, no forwarding address. And Arthur, uncertain and hesitant, kept the letter locked away. He never delivered it. Years passed. The children Arthur once delivered toys and birthday cards to became parents themselves. The houses changed colors. New trees were planted. The cobblestones wore smooth under his boots. But the letter remained. There were moments when he thought of it often. Late at night, when the house was too quiet. On Eleanor's death anniversary. Once, when he saw Thomas's name mentioned in a medical journal, he had become a renowned cardiologist working in Edinburgh. Another time, when Arthur caught a fever and thought it might be the end. He even wrote a draft letter once, ready to send the unopened envelope. But he didn't. The reason was difficult to explain. Perhaps guilt. Perhaps fear. Perhaps a quiet belief that the past had settled, and disturbing it now would do more harm than good. Then, one winter evening, Arthur retired. The town celebrated his service with a small gathering in the community hall. There were speeches, cake, a commemorative plaque, and an old photograph of him as a young man, smiling with the mayor. He smiled politely, accepted the gifts, shook hands, and went home with a heart heavy with nostalgia. That night, as he cleaned out his old desk, he found the letter again. Yellowed at the edges, still sealed. The ink on the front had faded slightly, to be delivered upon my death. He sat down heavily, the envelope in his hands, and whispered, "I failed you, Eleanor." The next morning, however, Arthur woke with clarity. Maybe it wasn't too late. He spent the morning writing. He explained everything, how he'd kept the letter safe, how the years had passed, how he hadn't known what to do. He wrote with sincerity, his handwriting slower than it had once been. He found Thomas Gray's address through an online directory and mailed the letter with a trembling hand. The following days moved slowly. Arthur took long walks through the woods, fed the ducks by the pond, and sat on his porch with a blanket and tea. His knees ached. His breath came shorter. But something inside him felt lighter, like the snow beginning to melt. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived. The envelope bore a return address from Edinburgh. He opened it slowly. "Dear Mr. Bell, I received the letter today. I had not thought of Eleanor in years, not because I'd forgotten, but because it hurt too much. Seeing her handwriting again, I cried for the first time in a decade. The letter was beautiful, simple, kind, and full of truths I never knew. She loved me. I never doubted that. But her words gave me peace I didn't know I needed. She forgave me. I had left without a word, not because I stopped loving her, but because I thought I needed to become someone before I could return to her. I didn't know she was sick. I didn't know she needed me. And now I know she understood. Thank you for keeping it safe, for remembering. You did not fail her. Yours, Thomas Gray." Arthur folded the letter and sat in silence for a long time. Outside, snow began to fall, soft, slow, and steady, covering the world in a gentle white silence. He stared out the window, watching children play, a dog chasing its tail, and a young couple walking hand in hand. Life continued, always forward. But today, something from the past had found its rightful place. Arthur lived for a few more peaceful years. He became a quiet old man who smiled more and spoke even less. People saw him at the bakery, the library, or feeding birds by the river. Though he rarely told stories, children liked to sit beside him, listening to his few words like old songs. Sometimes he would walk to the church by the lake and leave a flower by Eleanor's name. He never said much there either, just stood quietly, remembering. In Halewick, people say that Arthur Bell died with a smile on his face. They say he left behind no fortune, no children, no grand legacy. Only one unopened letter, finally delivered, and a story that reminded everyone. Some messages, no matter how late, still find their way home. And in the small stone church by the lake, next to Eleanor Whitmore's name, on the memorial plaque, someone carved new words beneath. Love delayed is not love denied.